Orange incentive.
But I don't
I think
know.
I'm
only guessing.
quite proud of us seeing somebody very doing well, you know. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Warm and damp welcome along to our August meeting. Thank you. We have an apology from Councillor De Grassi. Who else is here? Well, Councillor Bale. How can I do that? Enjoying himself in a much warmer climate. Thank you. 3.0, having huge nice agendas and their pecuniary interest. No, silence is noted. Thank you. 4.0 is confirmation of the minutes, 19th of July 2022. Mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Nichols and Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any discussion required on those minutes as circulated? No, thank you. I'll put the motion to acceptance. All those in favour? Thank you. 5.0, just before I move my mayor's report, third last item, meeting met with Barbara Gregor from DPAC. That got cancelled late on Friday and moved to this coming Friday. And I've asked Jess to add Friday I met with Nick Street, Tom Cooper and Howard in the Dodge Street City Club regarding their change room grant. And also met last week with Mr. Tao, the developer of Irani. He's just flown back in for the first time in 2 years since COVID. And also had substantial discussions with the GMs regarding changes with CERTA. So with those changes noted, could I just ask for a movement second, please? And Councillor Reid, thank you. And invite any questions on the activity report for the month of August.
Through the chair, one of the extra items there was about the change rooms at the Dodgers Ferry Football Club. Could you give us a bit of an update and if there is any funding likely for that project?
Well, this is the case. A good news story in the fact that it was just a sheer fluke that the Minister was down this way a few days before the end of the financial year for a chat and wanted to have a look around at a few things, and there was just a tiny little pocket of money that was still available, and just worked out that grant was about to put together. I've got to commend Dan Bryan, the president down there, with the tradespeople within the club. They were able to do a costing very quickly and give it to the Minister, which allowed for a small grant of $65,000 to alter the showers and the change rooms over the off season so that it's much more user friendly to all people using, including women's footy sides and the juniors as well.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. You mentioned the CERTA changes, and there's a couple of other items there relating to best activities. So perhaps join them together. There's board interviews, developers, Denali, and
There's a fair few
there's a
different
fair
ones.
few.
Yeah, look, it probably takes up over the last month to 6 weeks, 50% of my time. There's been a lot happening in the governance side of things. I would say thanks to Carolyn Pillins for chairing that role, because she certainly knows what's what in the governance area. And there's been a lot of things with bank accounts, late receivable of the state money towards that. Discussions even with Professor Richard Everston regarding, although it says there, council reform, part of the shared services, and that was aimed around the best model and the CERTA model. And we've had board meetings, we've had to interview other board members, we had an interim board in place to get things moving. Then it was strongly suggested that we make sure that we had coverage from the regional areas as well. Over the last 2.5 months, we went through advertising 4 people coming from them, and we picked up 3 new board members, which takes us to, I think it's 7 board members now, might be 8. And we had our first meeting the other week. Still a lot to do, it's still informative. It's gone from having 2 different operations from about 4 or 5 different funding sources into 2 funding sources and bringing different parts of the operation together. So it has been a lot of time involved by staff and board to get to this stage, but it is still flowing along just as efficiently as what it was beforehand.
Sorry, follow-up question if I may. And the conversations with Professor Richard Eggleston around the model, how does that then, or I assume continues the community focus of the model that's been there right from the start?
Yes, UTAS has been contracted to do a report for the committee looking at local government reforms. Shared services, where they're talking about things a little bit different to what we used to know as shared services, where you share an engineer or we have coal or something similar to that. This is more on the lines of how shared services with something like the Copying Authority, with specific purpose in mind, and CERTA. The other part of that is that UTAS are part of the review operation of the jobs hubs around the state, along with the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, sit on that committee. So they were also looking to see why it was so successful. And as you've seen in the paper over the last couple of weeks, there is an enormous conversation about the federal government wanting to get into this space and find out what's working and everything like that. As a state, whether it's the government or UTAS, JobsTAS or us as hubs, we're very conscious of the fact that the new federal government has the ability to come in over the top of something that's quite successful. So the more we can voice our successes and passion for local people being involved with local jobs, the better we think it'll be when they go through the jobs forum in Canberra. That we will come out looking okay and not have too much disturbance done to us with new ministers in place. So there's a lot of different facets to what we talk about. It was largely about shared services through copying and CERTA, the best system.
Thank you.
I'm just interested in the potential developers redone alley. Is that the marina or?
No, I'll probably be cautious on how I wrote that, but it's more about Bruce getting out of the fish market down there. And what needs to happen to the building to make it compliant with present and possible other uses. I feel people were doing the right thing. They had made appointments with Shane Wells, planning, and had various conversations. They had ideas, not very flamboyant, just pretty straightforward, but as with all those businesses in those awkward spots on the foreshore and with the way that business has developed over the last couple of decades, change of ownership and
chips
use.
down there.
Yeah.
But there was a design years ago, beautiful glassed area. I don't know who the developers were then, but I'm going back a few years now. It was most impressive. So
There's a couple of different things with that. One being its position and Crown's position on sea level rises and what they do with those leases and what they do with the development and the state of the buildings as they presently sit down there is needs a fair bit doing to it. So we thought we're better off to have a meeting on the side of something like Oliver that's middle of the road, business minded, was a very sensible person to go down and put the facts pretty straight to what might need to happen. Fingers crossed those something positive. Yeah. Lovely site.
beautiful site.
Yes, it is. And we've spent a fair bit of money there, some bushfires too in that corner and the boat ramp, seating around the corner. So I saw it from our point of view as a community and responsible for the streetscape in that area. So it's important that we understood what they were trying to do. No other questions, so I shall put my report for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 6.0 is supplementary items, none of which we have tonight. 7.0 is workshops listed there. 8 is departmental reports. Can I have a mover and a seconder, thanks. Councillor Reid and Deputy Mayor, and invite questions to our senior management and general manager. Councillor Jackson.
Through you, Mayor, for the General Manager, just in regards to the Paulina subdivision matters, and obviously with the rainfall we've just had over the weekend, and given the way the road coped, I'm just wondering if there's any scope or conversations around how they can fix that flood levy through there.
Through the Mayor, there's a bit in that question.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, there's a range of things that we're looking at. Between Russell, myself, staff, and the developer's engineer around some of the assumptions and calculations they've made with regard to how they've
Stacked up.
established the stormwater capability or capacity of the development. It's not resolved as far as, I guess, the parties being satisfied that it's going to work as intended. So we need to get some sort of third party checking of some of their assumptions done, likely by the firm that did our stormwater modelling. There's a range of issues around that, so it's not something we can jump too quickly to rectify, because it's, a big part is that the subdivision in effect needs to be finished to really understand how it's going to behave, but we can already foresee there's going to be some issues, we say, which we've put to the developer. They've considered them, given us a response, but we still have that separately, independently checked. And one of the potential solutions involves land that's not ours either, is decades old issue. So there's a few things bobbing around that development.
Might also add that, you might remember, we talked about the replacement of the little bridge at the Coles River there. There's some changes to that which are underneath that was built, and going back, I'd say 12 years ago, Councillor Trini's might remember, there was a fairly solid hydrology report done for that stretch as well, so we do have some pretty exacting numbers on flows down there, besides what's going to happen with the subdivision as well.
That was when they promised to build
The start of the bridge, wasn't
the
it?
bridge.
That's correct,
10,
yes.
12 years ago, yeah.
2006.
2006 was it?
Yes.
Through you again, just as you open that door there on the Coles Bridge, have we had any feedback from DPAC on position and where we're at with that?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
Take it as good, spending money.
Through the chair, General Manager, you met with Parks and Wildlife and Bets Curtis in regards to the Dunalley Marina. Just where are we at with that, and is there any progress or timeframe?
Through there, there's progress in time frames, but there's still the three parties involved trying to get to a happy medium. We haven't got there yet, so the proponents went and met with the Premier and Crown Land Minister, I'll say 5 or 6 weeks ago, who gave an undertaking to the proponents that the Crown would have their matters squared away by October, which would put the pressure on Crown to make some decisions on how they want to deal with some matters. And that's the rest largely between Crown and Council, because what's proposed will be the head lessee. But then there's still a range of matters that Council and the proponent haven't reached agreement on in terms of those details in the sublease around, particularly around the security amounts and how the security would be applied through the course of the development. So it's
Is there a possibility that the development doesn't go ahead?
That's a possibility.
So,
The proponents are certainly committed to doing it, but it's been a very long process.
Has been a long process.
It is.
Russell, congratulations, should be passed on to the BAS. It's natural resource management, good information in there covering a lot of subjects that we've quite often heard talked about or we've brought up at various times, and he's working his way through a pretty comprehensive list there and seems to have a fair bit of acceptance by various groups out in the community from the feedback we've heard so far. So,
Yeah, I think he's got a bit of material to come back to the workshops as well for council to consider.
do you reckon he could work with some youth on getting rid of the vandalism? I noticed the other report that stands out there is the number of graffiti removal incidents we've had. We're keeping the toilet roll holder industry going pretty well, just as Sorell, I think, by replacing them all each month.
Yeah.
Somebody's got a real fetish for toilet roll holders.
They have for some time probably.
Yes. But it is, the accuracy of the reporting on those things now is an eye-opener to anybody who takes the time to read these reports. It's a lot of detail in them on what is happening around, so it is.
Yeah, so what we agreed with Shane Wells was that we would try to put not only what was happening, but what was going to happen in the next month to council, so you're aware of what is kicking around in terms of your involvement with the community as well.
Is DBUS doing the draft management for the reserves? Is he doing that himself?
Yep. Well, he's doing some of it himself, and there'll be accompanying documents from consultants where required, but he's putting the bones of the Blue Lagoon management plan together at the moment. As we had a bit of a performer for the work we did in Lewisham, and he's used that and a few other pieces to come up with the skeleton.
And another follow-up question. In that process, what's the, says here that the draft plans have been prepared, and then there'd be stakeholder input, or has that been part of the process already?
They've had some input, but he will release a drafting plan to Friends of Blue Lagoon and the other parties that are interested in what's going on down there. Yep.
Russell, one of the issues of getting so much data is that it brings some other little points. When you look at it, one of them is dogs encountered for 8, which is fair few. Do we have a high success rate of getting them back to owners with microchipping and tagging and registrations, or do many have to stay as permanent boarders?
Well, the general 3 men, the only ones that send as permanent boarders are ones that are caught up in legal cases pretty much. So they're the only long-termers. I suppose there's 3 avenues. One is that they're returned to their owners and they pay their fees. The one is that they might end up in the dog's home if they're suitable. And the second is I suppose the last is the obvious one, which is they're not suitable to go back to where they are, and we have to deal with that as well.
Fair bit of activity there. I know we've had letters in recently as still about the activity of dogs on the beaches. More people starting to get out now.
Yep.
And it's always an awkward one because most people are very good, but always just a few being undone. But here's covering a fair bit of ground. Our officers are out there.
Yeah, I think Greg's here as well, but I think that, and they've sort of done a fair bit of door knocking and they've just sent out the reminders for those that registered last year but haven't re-registered, which has caused a bit of interest for the customer service staff when you let that sort of email go, because there's quite a few of them. But anyway, we'll sort that out over time.
Just under the appeals section, I'm just wondering how the meeting went for 11 Dubs and Co.
Was successful.
Was it?
In other words, 10 o'clock closure and no noisy bands.
So it's effectively been mediated for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, correct.
On something that comes, a question that seems to be coming up, particularly with attention on the opening of the bypass, is page 14 is mention of the developments, including the 65 lots at Fawcett Street. But with that, people are now asking, well, what happened to the other bypass? Could we have just some clarity on what the situation is for the record?
The bypass ownership was never passed to council or the government. It was still privately held. It is still privately held. The three people that owned it sold it on to a couple of different developers over the last 4 or 5 years. And it has ended up being part of that 65 lot subdivision that's being split between the Fawcett Street subdivision and the owner of 139 Main Road, Sorell. So that is been taken off the state government register or allotment for road reserve completely. It's not there. It has been printed a few times about that. But, that no longer exists as a road corridor or a highway corridor in any shape or form.
I wrote to the department and they said they had no intention of developing it whatsoever.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Just in regards to obviously we've agreed for the name change and passed the council meeting for the Pembroke Park, for the Southeast Sports Complex at Pembroke Park. Have we got any clarity, because a lot of the correspondence we're seeing is to Southeast Sports Complex, there's no reference to the at Pembroke Park, which we actually passed and moved for the name. And I see that we're now in the design phase of the logo. Will Pembroke Park be part of that logo, even though it is known as the Southeast Sports Complex at Pembroke Park? Just wondering if we can get some clarity around that going forward.
In regard to the logo, we've actually put a hold on designing the logo at the moment, but that was only for the stadium, not for the entire complex. And I'm aware that an email went out in error without stating that it was at Pembroke Park, but I'm not aware of any other correspondence that's been sent.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's
Without
right.
that,
That's just,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just through here, it just keeps saying Southeast Sports Complex.
I mean, we can
Stuff,
perhaps we can create an acronym at the back for it because it's quite wordy for when we're typing it again. Yeah.
No, that's all right. It's just, obviously there's some feeling around community on it. And, just have to make sure that at Pembroke Park's always recognised on it.
I guess one to the general manager regarding in the rates, I was only 1 month in, but the difference in the rates from last year collection to this year is 6% difference, which changes our cash flow. If that continued, do you see that affecting the way our CapEx gets done, or do we draw on reserves until that money comes in?
Through me, that Scott, the acting finance manager, did talk to me about it today. He's not concerned. He certainly noted the difference from year to year, but no, it's not really the fatal category yet. We've certainly got, in the short term at least, we've got sufficient funds to utilise, but I'm not quite sure why it's the way it is, but the numbers don't lie.
We have experienced very commendable and brilliant rate collection over the COVID period. We were expecting difficulties. It was totally different to what we were led to believe might be the case. That's the first little bump we've seen in the road, really.
Well, certainly had some feedback from rate payers around the effect of the last adjustment factor, particularly in the rural sector. But primary producers, their AAVs increased significantly, so they've seen some. Even though we capped our overall rate increase at 4.5%, within that there's some really big spikes still. So they've expressed some dissatisfaction with that situation, but we don't have a specific answer as to why it's less than what it was last year, if it's other cost of living issues or not.
I reckon it is. I reckon it's cost of living and people not wanting to pay it up front like they were before, seeing what's going to go, see where they go to as they go.
Yes, it'll continue for another couple of months. Be interested to see how many more people take it as monthly payments instead of
A lump sum.
payments. Yeah. It's a good indication.
I've got a couple. The report on waste management on page 17, just a question. Are we thinking or looking at all to find another site for the Dodgers Ferry Recycling Centre? I know it's a contentious site there at the moment. I know things are going to change,
Yes.
possibly, but
Look, as with two of our waste contracts, I think it's fair to say that discussions with Greg Robertson's been around the fact of holding things in a holding pattern for 12 months until we see what those changes need to be. And that will largely depend on who is appointed as the statewide contractor for the container deposit and how that fits together with using it for a recycling centre as well as the container deposit. Yeah. To make it viable, a few things have to fit together, and there's no great enormous list of sites, as you are aware, but it certainly is part of consideration or how you do it, so it's a much more controlled site. And if you're going to do other activities there, it needs to be a controlled site, so I would expect significant changes, and I don't think it would fit where it is at the moment if those changes have to come, but we don't really know until we see what's going to fit together to make that.
certainly isn't appropriate, most appropriate site anyway. And we all had an email from one of the residents asking us, was there anywhere else suitable? I did ask, did she have any ideas, but I didn't get any response.
No, and I saw that's an awkward one. You remember the original debates being quite passionate, and recycling was very small when that was first went in.
Not in my backyard.
Yes, not in my backyard, and you've got to have somewhere where it is very easy for the public and easily accessible. A lot of things have changed, including the number of students going to that school, the use of the footy ground there, and the volumes that are now going through those centres. So it's probably an appropriate time over the next 12 to 18 months to see what we have to do and where it will be. Where it will be is a good position to get full benefit from the public being able to use it for container deposit and everything else that happens. Because recycling itself and the number of products that can be recycled has dramatically changed. It used to be cardboard and plastics, but now it's just amazing what they're doing with some. And that will all have to be part of how people turn it into a financially viable industry.
Well, I think from a control side, and Greg's talked to me a while, so it's a lot about whether you can keep staff. You can be staffed or can it not be staffed, which you get a completely different behaviour depending on which way we go.
Thank you. Just a couple more, I'll try and be quick. You touched on the feeding there. I was approached by a lady too who noticed that it's in all the areas, not just one particular area, but I did notice the artwork on McGee's Bridge is increasing too. It has the department, are they doing anything, going to do anything
It's
about
nice colours though.
Oh, pink hearts.
Pink and
Yeah, I've kept them updated, Council, for years, but we get to see the action if that's what you're asking me.
I must get down in the rain.
It's every time I go
Yeah.
past, there's another little
Yeah, there is.
piece of art.
The bypass has drawn some attention to that, even underneath the new bridge, it was attacked very quickly.
Yeah.
We've seen the Geese Bridge, and it's brought to light things like down the Tuckrocks building, and we've had discussions with Russell and a couple of other community groups that may be keen to see those things change a little bit, so it certainly is on the front of everybody's mind at the moment.
That's good, thank you. I'll keep going.
Yes, please.
The train shed flooring, General Manager, is there any timber left over from the station, as I was told there may be?
Yeah, through there, there is timber. I bought it, I guess I go with Russell, quite a lot of timber, so we hope to use it if we can, but we're still waiting on a design from the architect to be able to go and get quotes. So that's, we've had it confirmed by the federal government that we can vary the grant to include the timber flooring. And now we're just, because there's a bit left over, so we're trying to get the design done so we can get quotes done, and hopefully we need to get everything done by Christmas, otherwise we're in trouble.
We'll have to supplement. There isn't enough to do the whole lot, but if we could supplement,
It's
yeah,
looking good.
yeah, but if we get some supplement to it, it'd be fine.
That's good. The other thing was King Grissom retiring, or
47 years, you don't
47
hear that
years.
so many times.
Longer than I've been here. A lot longer.
Don't
A lot
go,
longer.
everybody be quiet now, don't go there, don't.
A lot longer, I'll say. And the other one was the stadium, and I was a little bit surprised, the kitchen bench, the bar fridge won't fit under the kitchen bench.
Mhm.
That's,
Do you want to talk to my architect?
I'm just a bit bemused by it all, because I thought a standard bar, a standard bench, building standards,
Yeah.
you can fit a bar fridge underneath.
Can't this one, so anyway. He's got responsibility to sort it out.
Is he a short architect or a tall man?
No, he's a reasonably short architect, but he thinks he knows everything, so we'll see how it goes.
Sorry, Russell, I just found it amusing.
Through the mayor, we wish that was the only issue.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Really happy that was the only thing wrong with the whole thing.
And where are we heading with this BMX track?
I spoke with Ben today about it. We've had some delays with our designer, but Paul Markey, who's helping us get it to the tender stage, apparently the designer will be finalising everything tomorrow. We'll go to tender as soon as we've got that, 'cause it's been quite a frustrating process dealing with that company.
And so until we know how much the tenders come in, we don't know how much we're going to have to stump up.
Correct.
It has to come back to council as per your other previous decision. Yeah.
It's all in the angle of the hill, the ups and the downs and the curves around, and I never noticed it when I used to ride my push bike around, and got out and checked what the curves were that I was going around, but they do these days. International standard or national standards, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah,
I hope it's not going to be too much. We have to
so
There's a lot of anticipation in Southern Tassie Broad. We're getting a lot of questions asked from various government ministers and also Glenorchy quite regularly. So.
yeah, staff are putting the tender together. He's just doing the drawings and doing quantities basically.
Thank you.
Recommended to us by the club. And
And
absent anyone else that we knew of, we would seem a logical choice to engage, but it wasn't obvious whom else out there can design
BMX track.
appropriate standard BMX facilities.
The general manager is rumoured to be wanting to get his mountain bike out on it and test it out when it's all done.
Just wondering.
Excellent way to have.
We'll all be there.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you, I'll finish.
Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, Russell, Thorny Elton review that bridge, saying there late August, is that still on track, and has there been any delays with the recent rain downfall we've had?
We've asked for a revision of the program because we lost a bit of the bank on Sunday when I was out here, and they backed off their excavator and crane a bit further away from where they had it parked originally. They sent a driver down. I think we may have lost a week, but we've asked them today for a revised program because they haven't been, they've basically been tidying up when they're meant to be building the abutment this week. So that's why we think they may be a few days behind, but we've asked them to confirm that.
Thank you.
Okay.
The employee changes, the reference to engagement officer, is that changing the scope of those roles, or is it catching up with what they're already doing? If you see what I mean.
Through your mayor's, a bit of both, yeah. So we're sort of broadening the scope of the engagement officer role to work more closely with Stacey in the communication and engagement strategy and implementing that, and also some changes to community facilities with the appointment of the operations manager and distribution of workload around those two positions.
Good, thank you.
No more questions, I shall put 8.0, the departmental reports as a whole to be passed. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 9.1 is petitions, and listed here, discussion is the improvements to the dog park. Let a mover and second of that. Read. Couldn't believe you were that slow.
Just for scrolling.
I've just been worried about you there. Thank you. Open the floor to discussion. It's quite comprehensive what needs to happen there because of those soils, and that's there, but they have been over there and done some work. It's fairly detailed there.
What's, you go.
Okay, just through the mayor, in view of the fact that there is no impending transfer of the tennis courts or the construction of the BMX bike track, I'd like to hope that the council could make these requested improvements to this well-used facility. These improvements can only serve to provide a safe option for our community members and their canine companions. So I'd like to endorse the changes and improvements.
It says that they're on budget items at the moment, so they've done the maintenance they can, and that'll be part of the mid-year budget review on those items.
I was just going to ask, how serious is the tennis club about moving?
Yeah, we've had discussions over the last 4 years on a regular basis with Tennis Tasmania, and that's because of the subsiding of the issues that are with the present tennis courts. And Sorell being one of the few clubs in the state that's actually got sizable growth to it, they would like to do something to advance that. We have pointed out on every single meeting that we have got the funds to fund that, and they would need to fund it. They do have people at Tennis Tasmania and mainly Tennis Australia that would design the complex. And we've still said to them they still need to come up with the funds. As of recently, I haven't heard anything different. It's just been regular discussions, but no movement because of lack of funds available.
I suppose I'm just thinking, would it be cheaper to relocate the dog, start fresh and relocate the dog park in anticipation that something may go there?
Yeah, through me, that's what I was suggesting was if because the soil conditions just aren't helpful winter or summer, so unless you change them and add irrigation, it's typical Sorell black clay, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm suggesting. We need to seriously think about the long-term location for it, where that is best suited. And I think there's a lot of merit in relocating it to Manor Park, and there's a bigger space and less effect on residents, but it's a bit more cost because there's a lot of fencing to go in, but as far as the long-term site, that may well be, that's really good.
Might be an appropriate way of spending our money instead of just rehashing what's there.
We have discussed that a few times, but you might remember there was a couple of people at the last community conversation who said it was moving it too far away, it's only 150 to 200 metres away.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the overall usage of the people. A lot of the people that have signed the petition are actually travelling from Midway Point, so it's actually closer to them. There's a couple of people within that block that it might be an extra 200 metres for, but you're
And are the
exercising the dog,
dispersive-
that's part of the exercise.
Are the dispersive soils at Manor Park as well?
Yes, so, but you'd be able to keep the present system in place while you develop a an irrigation system, because that will be disruptive if we try to do it in the present location.
Yeah.
And if you move to a new site, it's not a quick fix to fix dispersing soils. You have to do a lot of the work in the ground, and that will take time.
That might be the way to go.
The park will probably
Long
be
term.
closed for a time while that all happened
Well,
too.
it certainly would be
Yeah.
a substantial amount of time. You'd find that, to do it properly.
Yeah,
If you was going to do it, harder off to spend the money and do it properly, so that you're not repeating the exercise every 12 months or 2 years.
yeah, right.
And that will obviously be part of the discussion.
Be a swimming pool there now, wouldn't it?
Certainly got some ponds in it, yeah.
And for
Some of
aerobics
the other
dogs.
photos that,
Yeah.
before the rains.
Through the Mayor, just to, I guess, summarise those two aspects, so the maintenance that's been done recently has made it safer.
Well, all the rain's
Obviously,
filled the
pending
cracks in,
rain.
so the cracks aren't
Yeah.
there at the moment, but there is some puddles, and
Yes.
they've done some filling in there. I haven't been to look at it.
They put some sand down, which is now saturated, if you imagine, yeah.
Yeah. And the fact, it doesn't matter what dog park you go to, it's a real battle in areas like this to keep grass there 365 days of the year, because the way the dogs work the fence lines and things like that. So it may well be that any new setup might have a couple of different areas, so you can rest in an area no different to a cricket pitch or a football goal square, heavy usage areas. So you're always going to have mud when you get rain in those areas.
Yes.
So you've got to be practical about those sorts of things.
Yes, the Belgrade Dog Park does that well. The other aspect is just taking a note of all of the issues raised by the petitioners is that balancing the immediate use and making that safe, as we've just said, with potential for a destination dog park, something that people come to from outside the area, and whether Wayne Park with a bigger space would offer that opportunity and contribute to some of the broader township objectives, the Peter Kenyon work and that sort of thing.
Got all that to discuss as we went through the budget of it. So.
Terrific. What I wouldn't like to see happen though is that we've often with the capital projects, they're great suggestions, but they're contingent on other things happening and then it's many, many years down the track before we actually see the result.
Right, that's life.
Well, yes, but as we were saying, it's not really contingent on the tennis club. It's more about making decisions about a move or not to move. Right. Okay.
And yes, either way, the funds that we take to do it, the soils
Yes.
are very similar, but they do get worse the further you go down. And,
Yep.
The drainage and where you can run, there's a whole heap of different things that the officers will work through.
Terrific. Thank you.
With that, I'll put 9.0, the report into the improvements to the Sorell Dog Park. All those in favour? Received unanimously, thank you. 10.0 is land use planning. The Mayor advised in accordance with the provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning Approvals Act of 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 10 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 10.1, desk minutes from the 19th of July 2022. I'll move it, please. Thank you, Councillor Therese. Second, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. As these minutes have been circulated, is there anybody who would like to make comment on those at all? Thank you. I shall put 10.1 for acceptance. All those in favour? Absolutely. Thank you. We move down to 13.1, which is community grants. This recommendation for the grants discussed to be received. Another mover. Mr. Nicholas, Deputy Mayor, thank you. And does any councillor wish to make a comment on this motion? Thank you. I shall put the motion for those grants to be approved. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 14.1 is the executive summary, financial report July, year to date 2022. Mover, please. Councillor Reid, thank you. Councillor Nichols, thank you. Invite any comments or questions to the GM? Very early days, of course. Too much into July straight off, but addressing annual leave is above budget by 17 grand in the first month, but due to termination during the month of employment, so January is a holiday month, not July, but we're correct. Yes, thank you.
Is it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reserve, funds in reserve as a result of asset sales, particularly land, public owned land, there's an amount that we are aware of, but it's not recorded as a reserve, is that correct?
Correct, simply cash raise, no, cash hold.
Right, would it be possible to include that in the report?
Yes.
Because it's something that we need to be mindful of, so it'd be handy to have it in there. Thank you.
Being no other questions on the financials for July, I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. We move on now to the questions from the gallery. No?
Just a few quick ones. How are the lights performing at Midway Point? I went to town last Wednesday night at 5:30 and the traffic was back from Midway right to Cambridge Park. And I felt sorry for the poor commuters going home. I just wondered if that's improved.
Yes, it has. Been in pretty regular contact with main roads people. It's very hard to get timing issues perfect with it. For instance, if there's a big lineup of traffic coming out of Midway Point, are the lights set for that one thing or for a continuous amount of flow? But they've been fine tuning it every day, and it's not fully operational with the lanes yet, but as that improves, the traffic flow will improve too. They're pretty sure they're going to get it pretty good.
I only seen it that one night, it was pretty disastrous. I was pleased I was going the opposite way. Also, the Wellington Forest Road, you were talking about that at the last meeting, the government wants to improve it. Is the council putting in a lot of funds to that, or is it mainly government? Because the community, most of the community, including me, got the opinion that we'd like to see the highway upgraded with more passing roads than spending money on a road purely and simply for tourists.
This council and management staff have been very strong over a good many years regarding the Wellington Road. It's a beautiful drive through there, but it is just a shortcut of a tourist road. We don't believe there is any great advantage to the ratepayers of this municipality contributing to the upgrade. We have been involved with the government for a number of years in doing costings on maintaining the road, fixing the road up in certain areas, but the flow-on effect also of that road being done up is the amount of traffic that then comes on to our roads like Kelby Road, how you control Rib Creek Road, which is a little goat track down through the steep parts there. There's a lot of flow-on effect there, and the General Manager and Russell are very aware of that and in communication regularly about it. That's why we have to put our hand up like other councils have to take responsibility for it, because the cost is enormous. The cost of maintaining a road that's hardly ever dries out is huge, and it would be a burden to this council to take it on without the government funding it to us.
I think you find a lot of the majority of the community would agree with that, until they do something to the outer highways.
That's right, there are many other roads and the government is financially struggling to keep up with those. There is overtaking lanes for the Great Eastern Drive that would be far more important, or the upper highway, before we go doing extra roads, is my opinion.
Yeah, like tonight travelling in, there was a car doing, I think, 50, and this was prior to Fawcett, and there was 15 cars behind that we couldn't get past, 50 kilometres in a 100-kilometre zone. It's just ridiculous and frustrating. Could I also ask you, it was mentioned about recycling depot down at Dodgers. Is the recycling depot still up near the industrial estate? I haven't had a look since the big roundabout went in, or has it been moved?
Yes, it is. It was shut for a while they did some of the work in that area, but it's open again now.
Could I ask too, how, when the council employs contracted workers as surveyors and that, how do you do it? Is it put out for tender? And if it's tendered, does the council give these workers a written brief that they have to stick to?
We'll handle that to get that right. Who would like to take it?
I'll take it, yeah. So for the capital works, yes, there's usually a brief at the start of the year for survey works, and there's a brief of the year for design works as well. And basically they're engaged by purchase orders with a standard set of terms and conditions, and usually there's a discussion about what's required.
And is there a time frame put on this?
Yeah, we ask them when they're going to have it done by.
You don't sort of direct to them when it should be done by?
Well, you've got to allow for the market, so you can ask them if you want to by a certain time, but then they'll probably, we try and balance getting a competitive price with a timeline. That's how we do all our contracting. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
If the fines of the tender are too tight, you pay for that.
Sorry?
If you put too tight a confines on a lot of those things and it's more difficult, you certainly pay the price for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, we've got a small amount to do in close tonight. Thank you for your attention and coming out at this time of the year and on the dampness. Hopefully the roads will start to dry a bit over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Please.